Though the world is called the forest, much of what we explore is not the natural world. Amongst the trees you find the remains of an old factory, some kind of mine, a stone fortress, dozens of graves, a statue of a goddess, and the wish house itself. Henry's entrance to this world is subtle. The scene opens upon the man sleeping on the ground, a dim lamp hovering over his head. It's isolating, dark, and lonely. We came into this world through Henry's eyes, only for the camera to suddenly pull far away and look at him from above. Now he is in danger and has to face it alone. Further in the woods we find an abandoned car still running, strangely left behind. It's eerily similar to Silent Hill 2, and it may reflect Jasper's real-world situation. Perhaps he was driving to the woods and simply fell asleep at the wheel, entering the other world spiritually. A note found in the car introduces us to the nosy man who Jasper says came to investigate the area some time ago. Jasper Geen, the second victim of Silent Hill 4, represents the source or origin. He is found in the forest near the wish house where Walter grew up, his own origin place, so to speak. The young man is interested in the occult and ritual in a way that perhaps mirrors many of the cultists in the area, perhaps even a young Walter. He's also connected to many early victims. The second and third people killed were his friends, and Jasper was nearby when it happened. He is heavily tied to Walter's beginnings. His dress reflects his occult interests. His shirt has a monster from the first game on it, tying him to the unnatural as well as to the origins of the series itself. The meaning of the name Jasper is uncertain, though one theory connects it to a Persian word for treasure keeper. More importantly, it's a name given to one of the three wise men who sought Jesus in the story of his birth, associating Jasper with yet another God in infancy, someone who seeks God out. His last name is a reference to a real-world killer. We meet Jasper near the Mother Stone where he is quietly mumbling to himself. Like Walter and Henry, he's a disturbed young man whose troubles are reflected in his anxious speech, the way he moves and keeps his head low, his idolization of Walter and the ritual. He seems willing to take his own life, carving the numbers into his chest after he's been lit on fire. We don't know much about him, but we can assume that escaping Walter as a teenager, while both of his friends died, must have hit him hard. It's possible he's clung to the ritual's success as a way of making sense of their deaths. If the ritual succeeds, they did not die in vain. In Japanese Shinto tradition, we find a great amount of religious reference for the natural world, and rocks in particular. In the forest world, we meet Jasper sitting near an enormous boulder surrounded by fences and lit candles. He tells us it is called Nakihona, or the Mother Stone, and it is sacred to the native communities in the area. The strange pair of boulders have round-shaped bores in them. These stones are associated with a ritual used to communicate with the dead. Later, we learn that one of the swords was originally found in this boulder, associating the weapon that can defeat ghosts with the Mother Stone. The shape of the holes, the communion with spirits, brings to mind the holes Henry travels through in-game. Associating the rocks with the holes and the swords associates them with the only methods of survival Henry has. The Mother Stone obviously ties into larger themes of the story, motherhood and divinity, and does so in a very Shinto style. This rock theme goes further. Multiple characters are named after it. Jimmy Stone, first sacrifice and leader of the cult, is an obvious one. Peter Wall's name also references rocks, referring to the rock of the church, St. Peter. Jasper's name may also be a reference, because of the mineral that shares his name. Another Crimson Tome tells us that the Holy Mother sect was associated with the Mother Stone before its traditions became perverted towards the 21 Sacraments. These ideas never seem to go anywhere. The Mother Stone is rarely mentioned again, only appearing in a handful of notes, but the connections to the central plot and the various pieces of lore that may be related to it imply a kind of lost thread cut short. Perhaps the game's developers intended to do more with these ideas that they simply didn't have time to finish. In the forest, a new enemy appears, the Hummer, a bat-like, bird-like monster. It's likely named for the hum its wings make. Its appearance here in the woods may relate to Walter's childhood. Living out in the wilderness means living among the bugs and rodents, the constant humming of the wild at night. Walking through the woods, you'll find a surprise, a booby trap that drops from above onto the road. Why would the woods be trapped? It might be a mere creation of Walter's mind, but it might reflect the woods themselves. If the children should somehow slip past the guards, it's plausible the cult might have put traps in the woods to keep them from running away. A warning to that effect is found on the fence around the orphanage, saying that children running away makes the master sad. There are many sights to see in the woods. Besides the orphanage, there's what seems to be an abandoned mine, perhaps a factory. Examining these places, we find long-handed tools, something that stinks behind a wire fence, a lot of pipes. Outside, a warning sign says, "Danger, do not enter." And inside, Henry wonders, what is this stuff? What could they have been making? Given the area's history with mining, perhaps this was a mine belonging to the cult. Perhaps older teens at the orphanage were forced to work there, which might explain why Walter left to live on the streets rather than stay at the wish house. We are left with the surreal impression of something nightmarish and ghoulish, but we truly don't know what was at work here. All of the worlds we enter are inspired by the real world Walter experienced, but they are not a one-to-one copy. Much of the environment is twisted and strange. Corpses and monsters are plentiful. Mannequins appear throughout the background in nightmarish tableaus. There are giant heads, enormous staircases, and unexplained noises. The forest contains many strange locations that may not make logical sense. For one, why are there street lamps in the middle of the woods? Why would one small area have 5 wells? At one point during later exploration, Eileen can even ask if this is really Silent Hill Woods. Perhaps a very large expanse of the wilderness has been condensed into this small, horrifying place. This is where we first meet young Walter, near the grave of his older self. This region contains the orphanage he grew up in, associating the child with that nightmarish place. He reacts to Henry with hesitation and to Jasper with fear. This is not a child who is comfortable around adults. He runs away without saying a word, while Jasper begins to rant about the coming revelation. Up on the hill, we find a single empty coffin in a dug-up grave, with the number 11121 written in blood. It represents Walter's grave, but this is not where either of his resting places are supposed to be. His body is found in room 302, while his supposed double died in prison, presumably Toluca Prison, where Walter's grave is found in Silent Hill 2. Perhaps the cult requested his body be returned to them, knowing it would rise up again. The other graves in the area also don't appear to be graves. Instead of names, full sentences are written on the gravestones. "Tread there, and thy home shall be made like unto hell by the power of the Lord," one says. Another says, "You will tremble in fear for the descent of the mother." A third simply says, "Best wishes for Wish House." The trees of the forest world are rather strange. You can find many of them wrapped in white bandages, soaked with what seems to be blood. In one area, a tree with roots shaped like hands hides the key needed to move forward. Blood and hands. These trees are far too human. This section of game involves a great deal of death. Both the orphanage and the water prison involve a lot of bodies. Sharon's family were buried in this forest, so we know cult victims were laid to rest here. A representation of Walter's own grave appears in one area. This is a forest whose ground is soaked in blood. In Japanese myth, there are many kinds of supernatural trees, but the juboku seems most relevant here. It is a tree associated with battlefields where so much blood is shed it soaks through the ground. The tree feeds on the blood and begins to get a taste for it, developing into a yokai spirit that captures humans and sucks them dry. These bleeding trees with human hands bring to mind such terrible stories, especially because of all the bodies found in these woods. This section of game makes a lot of use of the traveling back and forth between worlds. Once you've explored enough to trigger a certain scene, Jasper appears in front of the orphanage. It's locked, and he doesn't have the key, but he does have something the nosy guy gave him. Context tells us this was Joseph Schreiber, who visited the area years ago. As always, it is Joseph giving us the tools we need to keep moving, as well as guidance as to how to use them. Joseph gave Jasper a blood-inscribed spade on which were instructions on how and where to use it. Opposite where the lake and house meet, inside the hand holding on to the ground. Someone buried the key to the orphanage in the woods and left instructions as to how to find it. Yet if the key is found, you become a wanderer in eternity. No matter how many times Henry tries to leave the area, he is only teleported back into the same zone. Since Joseph seemingly found these instructions in the real world, it's possible someone took the key and buried it. Perhaps Walter, after he killed the most recent manager of the Wish House, took the key and left instructions as to how to find it. His divided mind, torn between obeying and disobeying, creating a way to throw the key away without completely losing it. To progress, Henry has to place the key in his trunk in room 302, return to the forest world, and travel back to the Wish House, then retrieve the key. Jasper comments on it when he returns, says it gives him the chills before entering the house alongside Henry. It's a far cry from Cynthia's situation, in which we were constantly hurrying, running from an unseen threat. Jasper is relaxed, unconcerned, and doesn't mention feeling afraid at any point. Inside the house, we find a few notes. One tells the children to listen to the teachers, not to go outside the walls, to read the book. Clearly, this orphanage is some kind of study hall in hell, meant to create future believers or practitioners of the dark arts. Another note seems to be from Dahlia, asking if Walter has progressed, if anyone has found Alessa yet. The reference connects us to the first game and associates Alessa and Walter. Both are magic children, tormented victims of the abusive order. Reading the holy text triggers the next sacrifice. After reading the second sign, Henry finds the next plate on a door nearby, the source placard. Jasper's death is eerie. Entering what looks like the remains of a church, we find Jasper already on fire, hot enough from a distance to push Henry away. Behind him are the remains of an altar, which may be where he found the candlestick he's carving into his chest with. The round bowl on the table may be based on a Catholic ablutions bowl, a short round vessel that contains water for washing during sacraments. "I finally met him, the devil," Jasper says, before collapsing to his knees, a penitent worshiper accepting his fate. On our return to the forest world, we find Jasper terribly transformed. He hovers overhead, limbs down and slumped forward, as if carrying a heavy weight. He is. The candlestick that started the flames is held in his hand. Fire and light are major themes of this area. Jasper burns. Come too close and his very aura damages Henry. The Wish House, which was in disrepair but still standing before, has now burned to the ground. Inside, we find a wheelchair and a mannequin missing parts. It has a unique appearance. The black cap on its head resembles a Catholic zucchetto, a type of skull cap worn by priests, and a Christian cross hangs from his neck. Pieces of a burnt black robe hang from his shoulders, all implying he's not just a priest, but a Christian one. So why is he in the remains of a cult building? A note implies the doll forcibly broke itself to block the way forward, acting as an obstacle to defeating Walter. The doll appears burned, blackened by flame, as if it were in the fire that burned the orphanage. Walter killed 3 members of the cult, but only 2 return as ghosts. The third, George Roston is the man who was killed inside the orphanage, the man who taught Walter the ritual. He shares his name with a saint, St. George, the fighter of dragons. His surname is a unique one, and it may come from the Old Norse Ráðr, which means the Red One. It's possible this body represents George, and he may stand in our way because he ultimately wishes the ritual to succeed, despite his own role in it. Pieces of the doll are spread throughout the forest, hidden in the bottom of deep wells. They can only be found when Henry has a torch equipped, when he wields his own fire to light the dark. Written on the torch are the words, "Holy Flame." The fire is both friend and foe. It implies danger. A forest is a terrible place to be in a fire, and the fire that burned the orphanage could easily have taken the woods as well. It is a dangerous thought, and it makes Jasper seem an even greater threat. But we must also use fire to light our way to salvation. The focus on the wells is a major change in this return level. Jasper mentions feeling something from the wells, a hint as to where the dolls are. The burned doll note says they are hidden in darkness. These pieces of human-like body parts are hidden in a dark, deep hole, a kind of womb they must be born from. Each level seems to reflect Walter's experiences as a child and a young man. At the Wish House, he was forced to learn the 21 Sacraments, to follow the orders of George Roston, his teacher. And in the forest world, we are forced to obey the burned doll, which stands guard over the place where George was killed. The doll is dressed in religious clothing and uses the language of the ritual, referring to the receiver of wisdom. It is the power here, ruling this ruined building just as George ruled the orphanage. There is no ghost for George, but the burned doll is his likeness, placing him in a position of power and knowledge over us, just as he was with Walter. The lower rooms are likely where Walter was trained, where Valtiel was sneaked into his mind. It's not an insignificant place for him. And while George likely didn't want to die for the ritual, he did want it to succeed, which may be why he is here hindering Henry. Every extra step Henry has to take, every detour he makes in these worlds, weakens him and makes Walter's success more likely. Make no mistake, the burned doll is not on our side. Around the orphanage, we see multiple notes referencing the children and the woods, signs telling them not to leave the grounds, instructions not to run away. A memory of Andrew in the lore shows him punishing the children for entering the woods, and there are traps placed throughout the forest world. This forest was a dangerous place, or at least was made to seem like it. The truth is, discouraging the children from the woods is meant to discourage running away, and it's likely many children tried and failed. If they ran, it's certain adults would try and run and catch them, that the children would have to hide, perhaps in a well. We know Walter eventually left the cult, but was it on good terms? Or did he flee, running and hiding, perhaps even ducking into the wells? The first trip to the forest showed us strange, bloody writing Henry couldn't read. Now, however, Eileen is with us, and she can read the notes. These bloody notes are pieces of young Walter's diary, and only Eileen can read them, the woman who represents his mother, and has perhaps the closest bond to Walter of any victim. She has been attacked and is now a victim, no longer able to leave Walter's worlds, but that connection also allows her special insight into his mind. What the entries reveal changes based on Eileen's state of mind. Should she be more heavily possessed, they take on darker details, revealing more of the abuse Walter suffered. The journal reveals, in detail, just how horrific Walter's childhood was. He is beaten, neglected, harmed by his friends and the adults around him. His only pastime is studying the scriptures, and no matter how well he does, he is often punished. He is constantly afraid of the round cell, and talks about hating and wishing his tormentors were dead, all at the young age of 6 years old. Here we learn how Walter first heard of the ritual from Dahlia, how he became so obsessed with reviving his mother. He mentions how many times he's gone to the round cell for no fault of his own. Within the journals, he mentions being in the cell for more than a week, as well as being beaten numerous times and the disappearance of at least one of his friends. We met Walter for the first time in the forest, and young Walter appears here again. Despite everything we've been through, Henry still approaches the boy gently, though cautiously, without any of the groveling of Andrew or the intimidation of Richard. He asks the boy if he is Walter Sullivan, revealing he does know they are connected. Young Walter says that's what everybody calls me, a bad way to react to your own name. He feels distant from his own self. That's not his name, just what people call him. He doesn't really have a name or a home. His entire sense of self is uprooted. Henry asks about his parents, but Walter says he never met them, though he'll get to meet his mom soon. His entire attitude shifts. He looks happier, almost bouncing in place. Off he runs, saying his mother's waiting. All the while, we know what's really happening, making the happy boy incredibly creepy. Nearby is a broken statue of a female goddess. She is barefoot, carrying the end of a staff or spear in one hand, and a shield with the halo of the sun in the other. The shield can be removed, giving us the crested medallion. In Japanese, it is the Monsho no Medaru, or the heraldic medal. The term implies it's like a family coat of arms, that it's connected to some sort of bloodline, and the themes of godly motherhood, even the end of what could be a spear, seems to imply this is a mother goddess related to the ritual, and perhaps to the spears that kill Walter. The basement contains a secret altar, more obviously related to the cult because of the halo of the sun on the wall. The altar contains the full 21 sacraments, in a text that contains a strange drawing. It's hard to see, but it might be a male figure kneeling or sitting down with something round and black behind him. It's possible the shape is meant to be the Mother Stone, but it's impossible to say. In the basement, Henry finds the door leading out of the level and unlocks it using the medallion found on the cliffside. Once again, we return to the spiral stairs.